اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آله في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وواعدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك ثما وتمتعه فيها طويلا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا خيرة الله وابن خيرته. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد المسلمين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا ابن ياسر الله وابن ثور والبتر المكتوم. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي همت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا عبد الله يا عبد الله لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت عظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام وجلت عظمت مصيبتك في السماء على جميع أهل السماء. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجهل عليكم أهل البيت. ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مغانمكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها. ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم ولعن الله الذين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياء وأتباعهم وأولياء. يا عبد الله يا عبد الله إني سلمان لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله زياد وآل مروان. ولعن الله بني أمية غاثبا. ولعن الله ابن مرجانا. ولعن الله عمر بن سعد. ولعن الله شهرا. ولعن الله أمتان أسرجات والجهاد وترقبات القتال ذهبي أنت ربي. لقد عظم مصابك فأسأل الله الذي يكرم مقامك ويكرمني به أن يرزقني قلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني ابنك مجيدا بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا عبد الله يا عبد الله إني أتغرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة الحسن، وإليك بوالاتك، وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونصرك، وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم، وبرأ على الله وعلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم، فرجت إلى الله إليكم منهم وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بمبالاتكم ومبالاة بنيكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الغار وبالبراءة من أشيائكم. إني سلم لمن سألكم وحرب لمن هاربكم وبني لمن والاكم وعدو لمن ناداكم. فأسأل الله الذي يكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم عدم الصدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب الثاني مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناصر بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني مصابيبكم أفضل ما يعطيه مصابا مصيبة وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منه صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إنا ضائعون تبركت به بنو أمية وابن عاقبة الأكبار اللعين ابن اللعين ولا لسانك لسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبدا آمنين. وأعطى فرحا في زياد الله مرضى فقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعنة منك والعطاء الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالمبالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن من الظالمين لعنة محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع لهم ولا ظالم. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاءت الحسين عليه السلام مشايعات وبايعات وتابعت منابت. اللهم لهم جميعا وتمرد. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر الأهل مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابدأ به أولا ثم العن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم العن يزيد خامسا والعن عبيد الله بن زياد بن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمران وعن أبي سفيان وعن زياد وعن إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد من الشاكرين لك على صوت الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الغروب وثبت لي غنم السجن عندك مع الحسين واصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا وهجروا دون الحسين عليه السلام. محمد على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. صلى على محمد وعلى محمد. Inshallah, we'll continue with the recitation of the Quran. Please welcome Sister Asya with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
So just a couple of reminders before we continue. Please make sure each night that you are checking in at the entrance before you come in. That's a requirement for all of us, and we should be doing it every night. And because the sisters mentioned it to me, I'll just mention it here. It's a requirement for everyone. Please don't try to argue with the teenage sisters who are volunteering to help with this task. Just if you have a problem with this or if you want to understand better, please come talk to myself or one of the organizers. But it is a requirement for all of us to check in the beginning. beginning, not just for contact tracing, but also the second piece, which is what I wanted to reiterate, is that as you click on that, I agree, you're saying, I agree to the fact that I don't have any symptoms, I have not been coughing, sneezing, or headaches, or dizziness, or any of these issues. And according to most of our maraji, all of our in our fiqh, this is a shari contract, meaning that if you're falsely making that claim, it's considered as lying in the eyes of Allah. So again, please make sure that you check in at the front. Please make sure that you have a mask on at all times, inshallah. And please make sure that if you're not feeling well, if you're sick, if you have symptoms that seem like possibly COVID-related symptoms, please just stay home. The program is being broadcasted live on YouTube at the same time. And same thing with the children. If you feel like your children are coughing or sneezing, especially from tomorrow, schools are going to start for a lot of our kids. If you feel like your children are experiencing symptoms, please make sure that just for that night or for those 2 nights that you stay at home and benefit from the program online, just so that all of us are able to also benefit and none of the other mu'mineen are put at risk through our behavior. Inshallah, we'll continue with the recitation of the Holy Quran. Please welcome Brother Mahdi with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والفجر وليال العشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد وأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد وأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه أكرمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه فيقول ربي أهانن يقول يا ليت كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون فانجلنا كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك الملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يكفر الإنسان الذكرى يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا نفس ارجعي إلى ربك ثم ارجعي فادخلوا في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد.
Inshallah, I'd like to request Shaykh Rizal to please begin the lecture. Please welcome him with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
For your own marhameen, for the marhameen of the organizers of this event, please recite aloud salawat. Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين إنه خير ناصر ومعين ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين وحجته على الخلق أجمعين. واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله. يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز معكم فوزا عظيما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الناس قد جاءكم الرسول بالحق من ربكم فآمنوا خيرا لكم وإن تكفروا فإن لله ما في السماوات والأرض وكان الله عليما حكيما. صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله الكريم. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. Dear brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. These past few nights, we have been discussing this khutbah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, on kibr and arrogance and pride. Last night, we arrived at this moment in the khutbah where Imam Ali, after having said that kibr and izz, honor and dignity, pride and arrogance, are characteristics that are exclusive to God. And then he says that any of his creation who has these characteristics, has these vices, is cursed by God. There is the la'an of Allah upon him. Then last night, we also talked about this next section of the khutbah where Imam Ali describes this event in the history of human beings, in the history of human beings. Maybe not the earthly history, but the history of humans in terms of the spirit. And he talks about this ayah of these ayats of the Quran where the first being who commits this act of arrogance and pride is shaitan. Despite all of those actions that he had done, all of that worship that he had done, the Imam, in line with the Quran, says that all of those actions became voided through this pride that he felt towards Nabi Adam. Now, this next section of the khutbah, the Imam begins to talk about our fight, our war with shaitan. And he talks about it in terms of pride, that the ultimate weapon that shaitan has and holds against us is pride and arrogance. Before we talk about the words of Imam Ali themselves, I just wanted to get an overall picture where you have to look at the image that Imam Ali gives us. He talks about it in terms of a battle, the most crucial battle that we could take part in. And it is relevant to each and every one of us. He gives this image of a war that is about to commence between an individual and his soul. And in opposition, there is this great enemy that infiltrates the most basic part of our soul, the very fiber of our being. He has access to it, and he uses all of his force to fight us. And so we have to be prepared. Now, of course, this image of battle of the nafs, battle of the soul, is something that we're familiar with. There are other ahadith that talk about this. There's the famous hadith of the Prophet Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where it is said that the Prophet, after the Muslims were coming back from battle, the Muslims were maybe very happy and they were jubilant that they had won the battle, they had won the day. And then the Prophet responds, this excitement that you have, we are returning from a battle of maybe outside world, a battle that is superficial. In the end of the day, what have we won? Maybe some wealth, maybe some land. But the more important battle is the battle that occurs within. رجعنا من الجهاد الأصغر إلى الجهاد الأكبر. We are returning from the lesser jihad to the greater jihad. We're going now and we're going to start the true battle. And then, of course, the Prophet is asked, what is this jihad al-akbar? And he responds, this is jihad with the soul, the nafs. Now, just as a quick side note, a lot of times this hadith, there's a question, what is the sanad of this hadith? A lot of times the chain of narrations of this hadith is questioned. Maybe is this hadith authentic? Maybe is it not? And then they'll discuss, okay, well, who are the people in this sanad? And then some people, even some people who have spent their lives dedicated to the study of hadith, they will say that, no, actually this hadith is weak. And maybe, according to this opinion, maybe people created this hadith to weaken that resolve against the greater jihad, or rather the jihad in terms of battle, actual warfare. Now, yesterday I had mentioned this lesson that Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali gives us in this khutbah, where he says sometimes God tests us through arrogance and through ignorance, and sometimes he tests us through our superficial knowledge that we have acquired. And so shaitan, his arrogance derived from that superficial knowledge that he had. He thought, according to his calculations, that I am greater than Adam because I am created from fire and he's created from clay. And so God sometimes tests us with that very superficial knowledge. Sometimes we set up all of this huge scholarship and we proceed our lives and we dedicate our lives towards searching for something that in the end of the day, we find that it's in fact taken us farther and farther away from God. And it produces an arrogance within us that actually takes us away from that ultimate message of Islam. There are in fact ahadith where the Imams talk about people who adhere to the superficial side of the Quran. They'll adhere to certain huruf of the Quran. They'll study the Quran day and night. Even if you look in Islamic history, a lot of times there are the minutest things about the Quran are preserved in scholarship. And yet the very meaning of the Quran is forgotten. So if we want to understand that ultimate meaning of Islam, we have to not just distract ourselves with these minute details. Did this really happen in Karbala or did it not? Did this small event really take place or did this not? History is important. Hadith is important. Quran and tafsir are very important. Knowing how to recite properly is very important. But what is more important is to understand what is that essence of Islam and that message of the Prophet. When we talk about haqq, what is that message? If we say that jihad is something just that we engage in certain battles, and that we take pride in Islamic history, we take pride in all of those conquests that Muslims took place in, and they took over the entire world. The known world during the time, almost half of it was conquered by Muslims. Is this really what we take pride in? Is this according to the lessons of the Ahlul Bayt? In fact, not only is this hadith of the Prophet authentic, but the meaning is recited and repeated by the other Ahlul Bayt. In one hadith of our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, فَمُجَاهَدَةُ الرَّجُلِ نَفْسَهُ عَنْ مَعَاصِ اللَّهِ وَهُوَ مِنْ أَعْظَمِ الْجِهَادِ. The Imam, he is asked, what is that ultimate jihad that we have to have? What is the required jihad that we have to have? And he says there are 4 types of jihad. He says, after having recited some of the other types, he says, فَمُجَاهَدَةُ الرَّجُلِ نَفْسَهُ. This type of jihad where a person works and struggles and fights with their soul against the sins that Allah has forbidden. وَهُوَ مِنْ أَعْظَمِ الْجِهَادِ. And this is the greatest jihad. This is the most important level of jihad. There are times when it's easy for us to actually physically go and engage in a battle. Not to diminish that, that's a very difficult task. But an even more difficult task and an even more important task is to turn around and fight with one's own self. And the reason why it's more difficult and more important, Amir al-Mu'mineen describes in this khutbah. When we talk about taqwa, in fact, one of the definition of taqwa that Amir al-Mu'mineen gives us, that Imam Ali gives us, is not something that takes us away from this world. It's something that has to do with our very souls, strengthening our souls so that we can face whatever circumstances the world presents to us. أن التقوى دار حسن عزيز ألا وبالتقوى تقطع حمة الخطايا. It is through taqwa, it is that process of working on one's soul, such that it becomes a force by which you can resolve yourself and you can protect yourself against any sort of circumstances, any sort of difficulties, any sort of problems the world presents to you. Taqwa is described as a stronghold, as an armor, as a defense against whatever circumstances the world presents against you. And so whether that is in times of peace or in times of war. If we can have that resolve of the self, then whatever difficulty we face, we can protect ourselves against those sins. Again, there are various ahadith that talk about this struggle of the self and the struggle of the soul in terms of war. And it's not just in Islam, in various other traditions we have this. But in particular, when we look in the words of the Ahlul Bayt, we have this image that the Ahlul Bayt give us. It's something that you have to battle against. You have to fight against. It is something that is not just imminent, but it is of the highest danger. And so in one hadith of our Ahlul Bayt, this battle is termed in terms of Aql, the army of Aql and the army of Jah. So the general of our army, that leader of our army, always has to be our intellect. We always have to really discern what type of battle am I going to engage in? What is my defense in this battle? Now, when we look in the words of Imam Ali, again, he has talked about this enemy that is present. So we can imagine, right? The battle is about to begin or it has already begun. The Imam begins by describing the enemy. And so he says, be warned. This enemy is coming for you. And so don't let yourself be infected by his disease and be led astray by his call. Don't let yourself be infected by the disease of shaitan, and don't let yourself be misguided by his call. And he is going to come at you with whatever means he has. And so the Imam uses these images of horsemen and cavalry and infantry and foot soldiers. It's a really beautiful image. If you get a chance to look at this part of the khutbah, it paints a very beautiful image. And it talks about all of the different aspects of a battle. He says, this enemy that is at the gates, he is coming for you with whatever means he has possible. He's going to attack you and march upon you with cavalry and with foot soldiers. And he has declared what his mission is. He says, Rabbi bima aghwaytani la'uzayyinanna lahum fil ard wa la'ughwiyannahum ajma'in. Allah in the Quran gives us the declaration of shaitan. He tells us shaitan has declared himself the greatest enemy of each and every one of us. And his tactic, the Quran also describes for us. So we think about, right, a battle scene. We're thinking, well, how is he going to come at us? And what are his weapons? And what are the soldiers that he has prepared for us? Right, all of these things. And what is his ultimate goal? Is it something that we can sort of maybe make a truce with or a treaty with? Or no, this person is coming for our blood. And so when Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali, gives this ayah of the Quran, he's saying, no, he is coming for your very essence and for your very soul. So there is no making a truce with shaitan. Now, just for a side note, a lot of times, again, we're wondering, well, why does this whole idea of shaitan even matter for us, right? Do we ever meet shaitan in person? Do we ever meet Iblis? Why does God speak about shaitan or speak about Iblis? Well, of course, there are the spiritual and the metaphysical issues. But one issue that is in particular important that we have to pay attention to is that talking about shaitan or talking about Iblis makes us realize that there is this singular and most deepest enemy that we have, right? Sometimes we think that, okay, well, if this issue was resolved for us, then everything else would be cleared. Maybe, for example, if this political issue was resolved, if this person went out of power and this other person came into power, okay, well, everything is going to be great. Or for example, if my financial situation was improved, then everything else will just fall into line. But when we talk about an enemy, and when we think about our problems, not just as something superficial, not just as a single problem that if this issue was resolved, then everything else would be resolved, but as an existential threat that affects us in the deepest parts of our very selves, then we're always aware and we're always preparing ourselves. And so despite this image that Imam Ali gives us, it's not an image of hopelessness. Imam Ali says this person is at the gates. But despite the fact that he is coming for your very blood and coming for your very soul, he has made this promise with God. And yet his promise is not going to be fulfilled. He says, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. ربي بما أغويتني لأزينن لهم في الأرض ولأغوينهم أجمعين. Oh, by Allah, I promise you, Shaitan says, that I will misguide them by making for them this world into a very beautiful and very wonderful place, a very spectacular place in their eyes. And I will misguide them in their entirety. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen says, okay, he's made this promise against you, he's coming for your soul, but قَذْفًا بِغَيْبٍ بَعِيدٍ. The words of the Ahlul Bayt are not words of hopelessness. They're in fact words of hope. But yet, despite having made this promise, he is going to be denied and he is going to be defeated. وَرَجْمًا بِظَنٍّ غَيْرِ مُصِيبٍ. And he has made this promise, yet this is just something that he has thought up on his own. It's just conjecture. So don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. You will succeed. Now, in the rest of this khutbah, Amir al-Mu'mineen begins to talk about not only this existential threat in terms of his army and in terms of his preparation against you. So for example, he talks about how Shaitan is in the very fiber of our being, and he's going to attack us with this very fiber. He is at each piece of, for example, our hands, our entire body, he's going to attack us in these terms. And then he says, not only this, but he's going to attack you with all of those who surround you. By your own arrogance, he's going to turn these people against you. And so in your defense, what you have to do is, first of all, you have to make this resolve. You have to make this resolve in your own mind and in your own soul, and you have to remove that bind that he has placed on you. And you have to release yourself from that death that he is going to make befall upon you by removing this arrogance, by acquiring all of those people around you, all of those allies. Whatever means possible that you have to bring to this battle. So when we go back to this idea of arrogance, so remove this arrogance from your heart so that you can bring about these allies around you. You have to use whatever means possible. And by arrogance, you not only do you take away people from around you through our judgment of others, considering ourselves greater than others, right? Saying that, for example, not only how good am I and my actions are, but as well how much these other people don't know. And so we have to try to ally ourselves with those around us. Inshallah, we can maybe continue this image of Amir al-Mu'mineen another night, but unfortunately we're almost out of time. But I think the idea here is clear. We're in this ultimate battle. And if we try to figure out some examples of this, we can look at Karbala. Karbala, in fact, not only do we see all of these different individuals playing out, not only do we see all of these different events playing out and all of these different vices and flaws playing out, but on the other hand, we also see what does it mean and what would it look like for a person to have true taqwa, to have worked on their soul to the utmost extent. Whatever circumstance was presented to Imam Hussein, whatever difficulty Imam Hussein dealt with, because of that taqwa, because of understanding what his ultimate goal was, he was able to overcome it. The reason Imam Hussein was able to sacrifice each and every soul from among his own family and from among his companions was because he understood and he knew what the costs were and he knew what was at stake. When we look at those final moments, on the day of Ashura, Imam Hussein, after having given all of his companions have been killed. And all of the Ahlul Bayt, all of the Banu Hashim have also gone out and have given their lives in the path of Imam Hussein. And Imam Hussein looks around and he sees that these are the final moments. There is no one else to protect the haram of the Prophet. There is no one else to present this message of the Prophet to these enemy soldiers. And it is said that at one moment, Imam Hussein turns back towards his own camp. He wants to make one final plea to these enemy soldiers. He wants to make one final plea to their souls to see if there's any sense of dignity and any sense of honor left among these enemy soldiers. And so Imam Hussein turns around and he goes back to his own tent and he calls out to his sister, Ya Zainab, Nawalini. Oh, my sister, give me my young infant child. I want to make one more plea to them. Give me my young child. Maybe this will open up their hearts. Now it is said that maybe we might ask, well, why is it that Imam Hussein asks Lady Zainab? The mother of Ali Asghar was present in Karbala. Some say it is because Imam Hussein could not face the mother of Ali Asghar. He couldn't face the mother of Ali Asghar because he knew what was the sacrifice he needed to make. And maybe it's because Ali Asghar's situation and state was so difficult that Ali Asghar was passed around among the womenfolk because his mother couldn't stand looking at his difficult situation anymore. It is said that Ali ibn Asghar was so thirsty that his lips were parched, that he was moving his lips, he wouldn't even be able to cry anymore. A young infant would usually cry if he has some need. And he cries and he cries, but when he sees that his need is not being met, he begins to wail. And if he sees that his needs are not being met for days on days, then his body grows weak. And he starts turning a different color and he starts to get pale. Maybe this is why Ali Aslam was not in the lap of his mother. And so Imam Hussein comes to Lady Zainab and he says, "Now, give me my young infant so I can say my goodbyes. This is the moment where I must give my final sign." And so Imam Hussein turns around and he goes back out into the battlefield. And it is said that Imam Hussein, when he comes towards the enemy soldier is looking at the Imam, and it is as though there is something that he is hiding under his abah. He is hiding under his cloak. They say maybe this is the Quran, maybe Hussein wants to make one final plea for his own safety. Maybe Hussein has given up. And when they finally see that Imam Hussein takes out his infant son and he presents him and he says to them, if you have any fight with me, if your fight is with me, then what has this young infant done to you? If your fight is with me, then take this son, take this young child and give him some water. If your fight is with me, then this young infant has not done anything against you, so give him some water so that he can survive the day. Now, we don't know exactly what happened in those final moments. Some say that Imam Hussein, once he sees that enemy soldiers are not responding, he brings his face near the face and the lips of Ali al-Asfar. Some say that Imam Hussein lays him on the earth, and some say that he raises Ali al-Asfar to the heavens. But in those final moments, we know that Karbala takes his arrow and he takes his bow and he takes aim at that most sensitive point on the body of Ali al-Aswad. It is at this moment when Imam Hussein has this young infant boy in his arms that all of a sudden he sees, instead of water, they have responded with blood. They have responded with an arrow. Father, like Imam Hussein, what is he to do? He sees the blood of Ali al-Asad falling to the ground. He doesn't know what to do. It is said that Imam Hussein, he casts his blood into the heavens. And he walks back and forth between the camp. Should I go back to Lady Zainab and his mother? How am I going to present? How am I going to respond to them? What am I going to get them? And then he walks back to the battlefield. Where am I supposed to lay this body? A call comes from the heavens. Oh, Hussein, lay him where he is, for he will be nursed in the heavens. God is telling Imam Hussein, your sacrifice has been accepted, oh Hussein. Your infant son is now with us. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. No part of
Brothers, please form two sets of rows, two in the front and two in the back, inshallah. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. तुझको जो पाऊं ए मेरे असगर, तुझको जो पाऊं ए मेरे असगर, झूला झूलाऊं आ मेरे असगर, झूला झूलाऊं लोरी सुनाऊं, दूध पिलाऊं आ मेरे असगर, तुझको जो पाऊं ए मेरे असगर। मेरे मुजाहिद मेरे सिपाही, कदमे हुई मैं दमे लड़ाई, कदमे हुई मैं दमे लड़ाई, घर को सिधारो माँ को पुकारो, मैं चल पाऊं आ मेरे असगर, तुझको जो पाऊं आ मेरे असगर, झूला झूलाऊं आ मेरे असगर, तुझको जो पाऊं ए मेरे असगर, झूला झूलाऊं आ मेरे असगर। याद आ रही है मासूम बातें, दिन में सुकून है बेचैन रातें, दिन में सुकून है बेचैन रातें, जी ना सकूंगी रोती रहूंगी, आंसू बहाऊं आ मेरे असगर, तुझको जो पाऊं ए मेरे असगर, झूला झूलाऊं आ मेरे असगर। पूछ रही है बाली सकीना, क्यों नहीं आया लौट के भैया, क्यों नहीं आया लौट के भैया, तू ही बता दे मेरा से आके, मैं क्या बताऊं आ मेरे असर, झूला झूलाऊं लोरी सुनाऊं, दूध पिलाऊं आ मेरे असगर, तुझको जो पाऊं ए मेरे असगर। पहले हुए हैं शाम के साए, अब तो परिंदे भी लौट आए, अब तो परिंदे भी लौट आए, मैं रो रही हूँ जागो रही हूँ, तुझको सुनाऊं आ मेरे असगर, झूला झूलाऊं लोरी सुनाऊं, दूध पिलाऊं आ मेरे असगर, तुझको जो पाऊं ए मेरे असगर। महसूस मुझको ये हो रहा है जैसे कि झूला भी रो रहा है, जैसे कि झूला भी रो रहा है, ए मेरा बेटा ये रोता झूला कैसे झूलाऊं आ मेरे असगर, झूला झूलाऊं लोरी सुनाऊं, दूध पिलाऊं आ मेरे असगर, तुझको जो पाऊं आ मेरे असगर। मक्तब से आई कैसी खबर है, गुरतालहू से सब तेरा कर है, गुरतालहू से सब तेरा कर है, दिल लगा है
जख्मी गवाए मैं मर न जाऊं मेरे असगर झूला झूलाऊं लोरी सुनाऊं दूध पिलाऊं मेरे असगर तुझको जो पाऊं मेरे असगर आली असगर आली असगर या हुसैन
असग़र में तेरी नाम आ जाओ चांद में तेरी प्यास में बुझाऊं असग़र में तेरी नाम आ जाओ चांद में तेरी प्यास में बुझाऊं असग़र में तेरी नाम मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो सीने तुम्हें लगाऊं असग़र में तेरी नाम आ जाओ चांद में तेरी प्यास में बुझाऊं असग़र में तेरी बेटा तुम्हारा कातिल मेरे सामने खड़ा है जाने तू हंस रहा है चादर भी उठ चुकी है यूं किस तरह छुपाऊं असग़र में तेरी नाम आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास में बुझाऊं असग़र में तेरी नाम तेरे चूल्हे को सकीना रोनों के चूल्हे तुझे ढूंढती तेरी मौत की खबर में असग़र में तेरी नाम आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास में बुझाऊं असग़र में तेरी नाम तुम रात को हमेशा सुनते थे माँ से मोरी अब नींद आती होगी तेरे गोद में लिटा कर नादे अली सुनाऊं असग़र में तेरी नाम आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास में बुझाऊं असग़र में तेरी नाम आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास में बुझाऊं असग़र में तेरी नाम या हुसैन
امام منصور توی سلیمان منمون امام منصور توی سلیمان منمون ایشالله که نباشم من برا تو دسته ناجون ایشالله که نباشم من برا تو دسته ناجون سلام به تو امام بالا مقام، چقدر دلم میخواد بری یه باری به زیارت بیام. تلک آیات الجنون ها و سین و یانون ایشالله باز هم بری دم همم قرارمون. لبیک مولا حسین، 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 لبیک مولا حسین. من امام العطشان یه بچه اومده میدان، من امام العطشان یه بچه اومده میدان. انگار که شغل لب تشنه به روی دستش خورمان، به روی دستش خورمان رو زده براش بگیره یک قطره آب، آروم بگیره قلب رباب، سشوق اومدش در جواب. دل با پس مادرش دیدی چی شد آخرش، بابا کشته خیمه ها میگیزه خود پیکرش. لبیک مولا حسین، 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 لبیک مولا حسین. من امام العطشان، من امام العطشان یه مادری که دلجونه، یه خواهری بمیشونه، محاسبی پرستونه. العطش میاد صدایی از خیمه ها، یکی یکی میگن بچه ها امون نیومدش پس چرا، برقه شد پنجرش، بیچاره شد مادرش، خاک پشت خیمه رو میریزه روی سرش. لبیک مولا حسین، 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 لبیک یا حسین.
Can you bear to hear the story of an orphan child whose beloved father loved her so tender? Now she lays all alone, nobody by her shrine. Put your heads down, let me take you to a different time. Take me away from this world and to heaven's door. I want to be with you, Baba, forevermore. Take me away from this world into heaven's door. I want to be with you, Baba, forevermore. Baba, come back to me, Baba. Baba, come back
back to me, Baba. Baba, come back to me, Baba. How can I live in this world without you, Baba? Why did we come to this land of Karbala? What does it mean, Baba? What does it mean when they say I'm an orphan now? They say the daughter of Hussein has no father now. What did I do? Where are you? Please come back, Baba. Don't leave me here in this place. Take me home, Baba. Take me away from this world into heaven's door. I want to be with you, Baba, forevermore. Take me away from this world into heaven's door. I want to be with you, Baba, forevermore. Baba, come back to me, Baba. 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 Come back and see what they did to your girl, Baba. They slapped my face and they burned my little dress, Baba. They burnt our tents and they stole all of our things, Baba. They took my bell and they ripped off my earrings, Baba. They beat my arms and they chained my sidearm, Baba. They have no shame and no heart, they're so cruel, Baba. Take me away from this world into heaven's door. I want to be with you, Baba, forevermore. Take me away from this world into heaven's door. I want to be with you, Baba, forever. Baba, come back to me, Baba. 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 Amu Abbas will bring water on the bank of Fuad. This is his word and I know he will not break my heart. Where is he now, Baba? How can we stay apart? Why has he not returned? Where is my Anu, Baba? Baba, where is Aliasta? Where did you take him to? Baba, his lips were so dry, but he could not tell you. And yet he smiled and he went on to the battlefield. Our mother's pain is so deep, it will never heal. Take me away from this world into heaven's door. I want to be with you, Baba, forevermore. Take me away from this world into heaven's door. I want to be with you, Baba, forevermore. Baba, come back to me, Baba. 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 She said that they shot him through the neck by a white Baba. What could that 6-month-old baby do to them, Baba? Take me away from this world into heaven's door. I want to be with you, Baba, forevermore. Take me away from this world into heaven's door. I want to be with you, Baba, forevermore. Baba, come back to me, Baba. Baba, come back to me, Baba. Baba, come back to me, Baba. Baba, come back to me, Baba.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein,
Ya Hüseyin, Ya Hüseyin, Ya Hüseyin. حسین عشق چشامه کفنم پیرم سیاهه به همه میگم تو محشر بدونید حسین آقامه حسین عشق چشامه کفنم پیرم سیاهه به همه میگم تو محشر بدونید حسین آقامه حسین عزیز زهرا یا 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 حسین عزیز زهرا یه عمری تو دنیا که فقط هست تو بودم شوره یا حسین زهرا تو نهر سرودم فکر تردید توی قبرم نام شاهدم اینه صدر و کافورم ایشالا تربت قبر حسینه حسن من عشق چشامه کفنم پیرم سیامه به همه میگم تو بشم بدونید حسین آقامه یا حسین عزیز زهرا 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 وصیت کردم رو قبرم روزه زینب بخونم وصیت کردم رو قبرم روزه زینب بخونم تو شاید آقام بیاد تو سر پیشم بمونم وقتی که نکی رو کرد روبروی من میشینم عکس شش گوش زنی رو به روی سینم میبینم سینم کبوده قش تو ازم میگیرم جای پرسشای قلبم میسه از سینم میگیرم مثل من عشق چشامه کفنم پیرم سیامه به همه میگم تو محشر بدونید حسین آقامه یا حسین عزیز زهرا 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 بنه امید دنیا بنه امید دنیا که فقط مست تو بودم شوره یا حسین زهرا فقط میشه سرودم ذکر تمکین توی قبرم نام شاه عالمینه صدر و کفورم ایشالله تربت قبر حسینه یا حسین عزیز زهرا 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 The ark of salvation, you're the light of Allah. The ark of salvation, you're the light of Allah. You love it, Master. Ya Abu Abdullah, 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 Ya Abu Abdullah. Look at me, oh Mawla, looking on just for you. Look at me, oh Mawla, looking on just for you. Taking you to Jannah, having all for you. Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu. The land of Karbala is the peace of heaven. The ذكر حسین حب حسین سلمان من سلامتون یا ابا عبدالله سلمان من سلامتون یا ابا عبدالله ذکر حسین ذکر الله حب حسین ذکر حسین حب حسین سلمان من سلامتون یا ابا عبدالله یا ابا عبدالله بابت شاه کربلا بابت شاه بابت شاه بابت شاه بابت شاه بابت شاه بابت شاه الهی باب الفان الهی باب الفان الهی باب الفان الهی باب القیه الهی مسکینه الهی مسکینه یا زینب یا زینب یا زینب یا زینب یا زینب یا زینب یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا حیدر امیر المؤمنین 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 السلام عليك يا أبا الله وعلى الأبواب التي ألت نفناك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعل الله آخر الليل مني لزيارتكم all together. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين اسمك العظيم الأعظم بباب الغمائج علي أصغر يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مغلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك وعلى محبة الحسين في الدنيا والآخرة واكفنا يا قاضي الحاجات ويا كافي المهمات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك غافر الذنب والخطيئات إنك لا كل شيء قدير. Tonight is a special night, the night of Bab al-Hawa'ij, Ali alayhi salam. Raise your hand, bring all your hajat in your mind. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Aman yujibu. Aman yujibu. أما يجيب المضطر أما يجيب المضطر ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر ويكشف السوء. Please remember all marhumin and marhumat. especially brother Razak Ali Nur Muhammad Jamal. Fatihata ma'a salawat.
So if you start from the third one. What? So at the end of the yeah, right there. You start from there. Should be good. من ماشاءالله دیشب دیگه همه عاشق خطاطی های من بزرگی مثل هم خانواده دوست دارم ولی باز همه خیلی متفاوته. بله. مصطفی که من خواستم با گروهش خیلی فعال بودم برنامه‌ای داشتم باشه بعد مثلا مال ساندی اسکول من بوده و خیلی تحصیلاتی فکر من کردم خود یه مقدار رابطه ایجاد کرده با اونا به شناخت نسبت به اونا داشتیم من فکر نمی‌کنم شناخت ولی اونها هزینه چیزی که موزیکانت ازدواج اصلا خوب سجده نرفتیم من مثلا شهر روز خوش میشیمان بودم شیکاگو بودم یک شهر مثلا خیلی دیدم این زمان مدرسه مال بود حالا همه گزینه‌ها رو مثلا حتی خیلی استقبال نکنم. اما هزینه‌اش یه مشکلیه.